Captain Rex stared out the viewport of his research vessel as Earth came into view, his three eyes blinking in sequence as he processed the sight before him. As the chief armor analyst for the Galactic Science Council, he had visited 17 different civilizations to study their defensive technologies. None had filled him with such a mix of curiosity and confusion as humanity. "Sir," his ship's computer chimed, "I've compiled the preliminary data on human armor designs as requested. Would you like me to display the findings?" "Please do," Rex replied, straightening his posture. His species' natural crystal-like exoskeleton sparkled under the cabin lights. The holographic display flickered to life, showing various human armor designs. Rex's middle eye twitched, a sign of distress among his people, as he studied the images. "This can't be right," he muttered, mandibles clicking. "Computer, are you certain these designs are current and not historical artifacts?" "Affirmative, sir. These are active military designs used by Earth's forces as of their latest deployment records." Rex paced the cabin, his crystalline feet making soft clicking sounds against the floor. "But they're using physical materials, layers of ceramics, metals, and synthetics. It's absolutely primitive." He waved his upper limbs in exasperation. Why would any advanced species choose to carry heavy plates when energy shielding is clearly superior? The computer paused before responding. "Human documentation suggests they find this approach more reliable." "Reliable?" Rex laughed, a sound like tinkling glass. "Energy shields can stop any projectile, deflect energy weapons, and require no physical maintenance. These humans are carrying around weight for no logical reason." As the ship began its descent toward the human military research facility, Rex composed his official observation log. *Day 1, Earth arrival. Initial analysis confirms troubling reports. Humans continue to employ physical armor despite having access to energy shield technology. Most puzzling is their insistence on combining both approaches, creating unnecessarily complex systems. This may indicate a deeper psychological need for tangible protection, perhaps stemming from their soft, vulnerable biological structure. The landing pad came into view, and Rex spotted his welcoming committee. 3 humans stood waiting, all wearing what his scanner identified as standard military combat armor, Mark VI. He zoomed in with his right eye, automatically beginning his analysis. The armor was a hodgepodge of materials: ceramic plates, metallic alloys, synthetic fibers, and, most baffling of all, the thin energy shield wrapper around the physical components. It was exactly the opposite of how any logical species would design protection. As Rex's ship touched down, he prepared himself for his first direct interaction with humans. He had studied their customs, but their illogical approach to technology made him nervous. His mission was to understand and document their armor designs, not to judge them. Still, he couldn't help but feel a sense of superiority. The ship's door opened with a soft hiss, and Earth's atmosphere hid his sensors. Rex emerged, his own energy shield humming softly, a proper defense system, unlike the crude contraptions before him. "Welcome to Earth, Captain Rex," the central human said, stepping forward. "I'm Colonel Banks. We're excited to share our armor development program with you." Rex noted how the human's armor moved smoothly with his body, despite its apparent bulk. "Thank you, Colonel. I look forward to understanding your unique approach to personal protection." Banks smiled, a human expression Rex had studied, but still found unsettling. "I think you'll find our methods quite interesting. We've prepared a demonstration that might challenge your preconceptions about armor design." "I doubt that," Rex thought to himself, following the humans toward the facility. "But protocol requires thorough documentation, even of primitive technologies." Little did Rex know, his entire understanding of armor design was about to be turned upside down by these seemingly illogical humans. The testing range stretched out before Rex like a giant metal box, its walls reinforced with various materials he considered outdated. Colonel Banks stood beside him in the observation room, still wearing that unsettling human expression called a smile. Today's demonstration will showcase why we stick to our primitive armor design, Banks said, emphasizing the word primitive in a way that made Rex's middle eye twitch again. Very well, Rex replied, trying to sound diplomatic. Though I must note that energy shields have proven superior in 94.3% of combat scenarios. Banks nodded. Let's start with test 1. Private Wilson, you're up. A human soldier walked into the testing range, wearing what Rex's scanner identified as standard combat armor. The private gave a thumbs up, another human gesture Rex had studied. First, we'll demonstrate traditional energy weapon impacts, Banks announced. Rex watched with mild interest as various energy beams struck the soldier's armor. The combination of physical plating and minimal energy shielding held up adequately, though Rex noted it was far less efficient than pure energy shields. Satisfactory, Rex commented, though our shields would have handled those shots with 23% less power consumption. Banks' smile grew wider. Now for test 2. Wilson, ready? Ready, sir, the soldier called back. Computer, activate environmental hazards. Rex's 3 eyes widened as the range suddenly filled with various threats. Acid spray, electromagnetic pulses, projectiles, thermal extremes, and even some chunks of debris began assaulting the soldier from different directions. To Rex's astonishment, Private Wilson kept standing. The physical armor deflected debris. The ceramic layers handled the heat, the synthetic materials resisted the acid, and the thin energy shield managed the energy weapons. It was chaos, it was unrefined, and it was working perfectly. Impossible, Rex muttered, his crystalline form vibrating with confusion. The power requirements for energy shields to handle all those threats would be astronomical, Banks finished for him. Which is exactly why we use layered physical armor with minimal shielding. Each layer has a purpose, Captain. We're not carrying around extra weight for fun. Rex's scientific mind raced to process this information. But the maintenance requirements must be enormous. Banks shrugged. Less than you'd think. Private Wilson, show the captain your armor's self-repair features. The soldier pressed a small button on his chest plate. Rex watched in fascination as nanobots emerged from tiny compartments, beginning to repair minor damage to the armor's surface. That's not even the best part, Banks continued. Wilson, initiate shield failure simulation. The soldier's energy shield suddenly went dark. Rex's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of alarm among his people. But instead of becoming vulnerable, the armor's physical components automatically adjusted their configuration, overlapping differently to compensate for the lost shield. Adaptability through mechanical means, Rex whispered, his scientific interest finally overcoming his prejudice. Your armor doesn't just protect. It evolves during combat. Exactly, Banks exclaimed. Energy shields are wonderful, Captain, but they're also predictable. Our enemies quickly learn their frequencies, their power limitations, their wavelengths. But try predicting the behavior of composite ceramics under stress, or the way our synthetic fibers react to different threats. It's like trying to solve a puzzle that keeps changing its shape. Rex found himself moving closer to the observation window, all 3 eyes focused intently on the demonstration. Your species took a simple concept, physical protection, and turned it into an adaptive system that defies logic, Banks suggested with another smile. Yes, Rex admitted, his crystalline form reflecting the flashing lights of ongoing weapons tests, though perhaps that's exactly why it works so well. As Private Wilson completed another set of tests, Rex began to understand that he wasn't observing a primitive technology at all. He was watching the evolution of armor itself, driven by humanity's strange but undeniably effective approach to problem-solving. Rex was still processing the demonstration results in his quarters when the emergency alarms blared through the research station. His crystalline form vibrated in response to the sound frequencies. Warning: multiple unauthorized vessels detected. Hostile intent confirmed. This is not a drill. All personnel proceed to designated shelter areas. The door to his quarters slid open, revealing Private Wilson in full combat armor. Captain Rex, sir, we need to move you to the secure bunker immediately. Space pirates have breached our outer defenses. Rex activated his energy shield, the most advanced personal protection system in the Galactic Science Council. Pirates. Out here. How do they get past the station's shields? Questions later, sir. Movement now. Wilson urged, already checking the corridor. They had barely made it 20 meters when the first explosion rocked the station. Rex's sensitive crystalline structure detected unusual energy signatures. These weapons, they're using shield bypassing technology. Yeah, they've got the new quantum phase guns, Wilson confirmed, his voice steady despite the situation. Been a real pain in our neck lately. This way. Sir. Another explosion sent debris raining down from the ceiling. Rex watched in horror as chunks of metal passed right through his energy shield like it wasn't even there. Before he could react, Wilson tackled him, covering Rex's crystalline body with his own armored form. The impacts that should have shattered Rex's exoskeleton were instead absorbed by Wilson's primitive armor. The ceramic plates distributed the force, while the synthetic layers prevented fragmentation damage. How? How did your armor stop that? Rex asked as they got back up. Those projectiles ignored energy shields completely. Wilson helped Rex up while scanning for threats. That's why we stick to physical armor, sir. Can't phase shift through good old-fashioned ceramics and composites. They rounded a corner and found themselves face to face with 3 pirates. Rex froze as he saw their weapons. Experimental models capable of bypassing any known energy shield. Down. Wilson shouted, pulling Rex behind a support column. The pirates opened fire, their quantum phase rounds passing through the station's walls like they were mist. But when they hit Wilson's armor, they stopped dead. Impossible, one of the pirates shouted. Those shields should be useless. Wilson chuckled inside his helmet. Who said anything about shields? He returned fire, forcing the pirates to retreat. More human Marines arrived, their varied armor designs working together like a coordinated dance. Some had heavy plating for direct combat. Others wore lighter suits for mobility, but all of them remained effective despite the pirates' shield-bypassing weapons. Rex watched in amazement as the human defenders coordinated their efforts. When energy weapons came their way, their minimal shields absorbed the hits. When phase bullets flew, their physical armor stopped them cold. When corrosive gases filled the air, their environmental seals held firm. This is why we layer our defenses, Wilson explained as they finally reached the bunker. Never put all your eggs in one basket. That's what we say on Earth. I don't understand the egg reference, Rex admitted, but I'm beginning to understand your armor philosophy. One system alone can fail, but multiple systems working together make up for each other's weaknesses. Wilson finished. Sure, it's not as elegant as pure energy shielding. It's clunky, it's heavy, and it looks like something cobbled together in a garage. But it works. The all-clear signal sounded 30 minutes later. The pirates had been repelled, largely thanks to the human defenders' armor allowing them to fight back despite the advanced weapons. As Rex watched the cleanup crews begin their work, he opened his research log and began a new entry. Day 4, Emergency Incident. I must revise my earlier assessments. Human armor design philosophy appears to be based on a fundamental truth I had overlooked. The most elegant solution is not always the most effective. Their seemingly illogical approach to protection has proven to be remarkably logical in its own way. Perhaps it is time for the Galactic Science Council to reevaluate its own assumptions about defensive technology. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Science Council sparkled with the crystalline forms of hundreds of senior researchers. Rex stood at the center, his presentation materials ready, knowing what he was about to say would cause an uproar. Esteemed colleagues, he began, his voice resonating through the chamber. My analysis of human armor technology has led me to a conclusion that may disturb you. We have been wrong. The chamber erupted in tinkling sounds, the equivalent of shocked gasps among his species. Head researcher Dale, whose crystal structure had grown elaborate with age, leaned forward. "Wrong about what, exactly, Captain Rex?" Dale asked. All three eyes narrowed. Rex activated the holographic display, showing footage from the pirate attack. "Wrong about dismissing physical armor as primitive. Wrong about considering energy shields the pinnacle of protection. And most importantly, wrong about what makes a defense system truly effective." The footage played, showing human Marines shrugging off weapons that bypassed energy shields completely. Rex highlighted specific examples with his pointing limb. "But the power requirements," one researcher shouted. "The maintenance costs." "Actually," Rex countered, pulling up his data charts, "human armor requires 43% less power than our shield systems. Yes, it needs physical maintenance, but it can't be disabled by a single electromagnetic pulse. And unlike our shields, it doesn't broadcast its frequency patterns to enemies." Head researcher Dale's crystalline form vibrated with irritation. "Captain Rex, are you suggesting we abandon centuries of shield development to copy human protection systems?" "No," Rex replied, his middle eye brightening with excitement. "I'm suggesting we learn from their approach. Look at this diagram." The hologram shifted to show a cross-section of human armor. They don't just stack materials randomly. Each layer serves multiple purposes. The outer ceramic plates don't just stop projectiles. They also scatter energy beams. The synthetic fibers don't just provide flexibility. They also contain sensor networks. Even the spacing between layers is calculated to create failure points that actually make the armor stronger. Another researcher raised a limb. "But it's so inelegant." "Exactly," Rex exclaimed. "That's what I thought too. But look at these combat statistics." He displayed a new chart. Human armor has a 97% survival rate against unknown weapons. Our shields, only 62%. Why? Because our elegant solution has predictable weaknesses. Their messy solution is harder to counter. The chamber filled with the sound of clicking mandibles. The council members were getting agitated. Rex pressed on, showing more data from his research. "Here's the most fascinating part," he continued. "Their armor doesn't just protect against weapons. It handles environmental hazards, radiation, temperature extremes, and even some psychological warfare effects. The physical presence of the armor helps human soldiers feel more confident in combat." "Psychological effects? Preposterous," someone shouted from the back. Rex played his final card, footage from the demonstration with Private Wilson. "Watch what happens when their shield component fails," he narrated as the video played. "The physical armor automatically reconfigures. No power, no advanced computing, just clever mechanical design. When our shields fail, we're defenseless. When their shields fail, they still have multiple layers of protection." Head researcher Dale raised all three limbs for silence. "Captain Rex, are you seriously suggesting we consider adding physical components to our protection systems?" "With all due respect, head researcher," Rex replied, standing straighter, "I'm suggesting we need to rethink our entire approach to defensive technology. Humans have proven that sometimes the most primitive-looking solution can be the most advanced. Their armor isn't primitive. It's evolved along a different path than ours. And in some ways, that path has taken them further than we've gone with all our elegant energy fields." The chamber erupted in debate, exactly as Rex had expected. But he noticed some younger researchers were already taking notes, their crystals glowing with curiosity. Perhaps, he thought, the next generation would be more open to learning from humanity's seemingly illogical but undeniably effective approach to armor design. 1 month after Rex's controversial presentation, the Research Academy's testing facility buzzed with activity. Young crystal form scientists scurried about, carrying pieces of ceramic, metal, and synthetic materials. In the center of the chaos stood researcher Max, one of Rex's most enthusiastic supporters. No, the ceramic layer goes first. then the shock-absorbing gel. Max waved his limbs at his team, his crystal form glowing with excitement. Remember what the humans taught Captain Rex. It's not just about stopping impacts. It's about managing energy transfer. Rex watched from the observation deck, his middle eye twinkling with amusement. What had started as a small group of curious young researchers had grown into a full movement. They called themselves the Hybrid Defense Initiative, and they were turning the entire field of armor research upside down. Captain Rex, a voice called from behind him. He turned to see head researcher Dale approaching, looking less than pleased. This has gone too far. Look at them, playing with rocks and cloth like primitive creatures. Below, Max's team had successfully assembled their first prototype. It was ugly by crystal form standards, a mix of physical plates and minimal energy shielding that looked more like a patchwork quilt than proper armor. But when they activated the testing sequence, both Rex and Dale watched in silence as it withstood everything thrown at it. Primitive, you say? Rex gestured at the test results floating above the chamber. That primitive design just survived a level 5 weapons barrage while using only 15% of the power our standard shields require. Dale's crystal structure vibrated with frustration. The Council will never approve. The Council already has, interrupted a new voice. They turned to see Dr. Lee, one of the youngest Council members, her crystal form sleek and modern. We've been watching these experiments with great interest. Below, Max's team cheered as their prototype survived another barrage. This time, they'd completely disabled its power supply, and the physical components had held up perfectly. But our traditions, Dale began, got us into this arms race in the first place, Lee finished. We've spent centuries trying to build better energy shields, and our enemies have spent centuries learning to bypass them. These young researchers are doing exactly what scientists should do, learning from new evidence. Rex moved closer to the window as Max's team began testing their second prototype. This one incorporated a design element he recognized from his time on Earth, overlapping plates that could shift to cover damaged areas. It's not just about the armor, Rex explained, his voice soft. It's about how humans think. They don't just ask, how can we make this stronger? They ask, what else can this do? Look there. He pointed to where Max was demonstrating a new feature. The prototype armor's physical layers weren't just for protection. They contained emergency medical supplies, communication backup systems, and even small repair drones. Efficiency through complexity, Lee mused, watching the demonstration. It seems like a contradiction, yet it works. Dale's crystal structure had stopped vibrating, his three eyes fixed on the testing chamber. Perhaps I've been too rigid in my thinking. Those results are impressive. And this is just the beginning, Rex added. Max's team is already talking about combining our crystal form biological advantages with human armor principles. Imagine armor that can grow and adapt like our bodies, but with the versatility of human designs. The chamber below erupted in cheers again as the second prototype survived its final test. Max looked up at the observation deck, all three of his eyes glowing with pride as he gave the human gesture of a thumbs up, a habit many young researchers had adopted. The revolution has already started, Rex said, watching more young scientists pour into the chamber with new materials and ideas. We can either adapt, or we can watch as humanity's primitive approach leaves our elegant solutions in the dust. Even Dale had to admit, as another successful test lit up the chamber, that sometimes the most logical path forward was the one that seemed to defy logic itself. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Science Council was chaos. Crystal forms flickered with agitation as reports streamed in from across 3 sectors. Rex stood at the central platform, his middle eye fixed on the holographic display showing the devastation. 14 outposts, head researcher Dale announced, his voice heavy. All protected by our most advanced shield systems, all destroyed by these new weapons. The display showed footage of strange, spiral-shaped projectiles that simply passed through energy shields as if they weren't there. The crystalline defenders, relying solely on their shields, had been completely defenseless. The attacking ships, Rex noted, they're using some kind of twisted space ammunition. It exists partially in another dimension, allowing it to bypass energy fields completely. The council chamber erupted in panicked clicking sounds. These weapons represented their worst nightmare, something that made their perfect shield technology useless. Then a message flashed across the display. Incoming transmission. Earth Defense 4C. The hologram shifted to show Colonel Banks, still wearing that same confident smile Rex remembered. Heard you folks were having some trouble with the new spiral raiders. Colonel. Rex's crystal form brightened at seeing his old friend. Your forces have encountered these weapons 3 times now. Banks nodded. Lost a few shield generators, but haven't lost a single soldier. Want to see why? The display split to show footage from a recent battle. Human Marines in their primitive armor were engaging the raiders directly. The spiral ammunition passed through their energy shields, just like it did with the crystalline defenses. But then it slammed into the physical armor layers and stopped dead. It's really quite simple, Banks explained as the council watched in stunned silence. These twisted space rounds need to re-enter normal space eventually. When they do, good old-fashioned physical armor works just fine. Actually works better than usual, since the dimensional transition makes the rounds unstable. Rex turned to the council, his crystal form practically glowing. This is exactly what I've been trying to tell you. Human armor isn't just different. It's fundamentally more adaptable to new threats. But how could they have possibly prepared for weapons that didn't exist when they designed their armor? One council member asked. Banks laughed. We didn't. That's the beauty of our primitive approach. By designing armor to handle multiple threat types in multiple ways, we accidentally created protection against threats we hadn't even imagined yet. The council chamber was silent for a moment. Then Dr. Lee stepped forward. The Hybrid Defense Initiative has 3 prototype armors ready for field testing. They combine our crystal form biological properties with human design principles. How soon can they be deployed? Dale asked, all traces of his previous skepticism gone. Mass production can begin immediately. Max chimed in from his lab. We've been refining the manufacturing process while the traditionalists were debating whether to even try it. Banks nodded approvingly. We're happy to share more of our design principles. After all, we humans have a saying. The best defense is a defense that doesn't care what it's defending against. That's not a real human saying, Rex noted, his middle eye twinkling with amusement. It is now, Banks grinned. Just made it up. That's another human principle. If something works, it doesn't matter if it's traditional or not. The council chamber had changed from panic to purposeful activity. Young researchers were already coordinating with human engineers, sharing data and ideas. The older members, including Dale, were reviewing Rex's original research with new eyes. Sometimes, Rex addressed the council. The most logical choice is to embrace solutions that seem to defy logic. Humanity's armor designs work precisely because they don't follow our preconceptions of how armor should work. As if to emphasize his point, another battle report came in. Human forces had successfully defended a crystalline outpost from the raiders, their hybrid teams of human and crystal-formed soldiers protected by both species' armor innovations. 1 year after the Spiral Raiders attack, the Galactic Science Council's main research facility looked very different. Crystal-formed scientists worked alongside human engineers, their workstations filled with both holographic displays and physical material samples. In the center of it all, Rex sat in his new office, examining the latest prototype of the integrated defense system. Still can't believe they made you Director of Armor Innovation, Colonel Banks said, entering the office with his characteristic grin. He was wearing the newest version of human crystal hybrid armor, its surface shimming with both energy fields and physical plates. Still can't believe I accepted, Rex replied, his crystal form glowing warmly. Though someone had to keep Max from trying to add rocket launchers to everything. Hey, Rocket launchers are a perfectly valid defense mechanism. Max's voice came through the intercom, causing both Rex and Banks to laugh. Rex picked up the prototype on his desk, a small piece of armor that combined human layered design with crystal form growing technology. We've come so far in just 1 year. Look at this. When damaged, it actually grows new protective layers using principles from both our species. And how's the old guard taking it? Banks asked, examining the various awards now decorating Rex's office walls, including one that read Most Illogically Logical Innovation of the Year. Head researcher Dale has become one of our biggest supporters, Rex said, his middle eye twinkling. Yesterday he gave a speech about how elegant simplicity can sometimes be found in apparent chaos, though he still refuses to give a thumbs up. The facility's warning system suddenly chimed, but not an alarm. It was the daily testing sequence. Through his office window, Rex watched as a line of soldiers, both human and crystal form, entered the testing chamber wearing various types of hybrid armor. "Remember when I first arrived on Earth?" Rex asked, watching the tests begin. "I was so certain that pure energy shields were the only logical choice for armor." Banks nodded, taking the seat. "And now look. You've got humans wearing crystal-inspired armor and crystal forms wearing physical plates. Best of both worlds." The test chamber erupted in controlled chaos as every known weapon type, and several unknown ones, were fired at the soldiers. Their hybrid armor systems responded beautifully, each layer working in concert with the others. Physical plates absorbed some hits, energy shields deflected others, and crystal form elements adapted to whatever got through. "The really interesting part," Rex noted, checking the test data, "is how each species is teaching the other new ways to think about protection. Humans are learning to appreciate the elegance of energy manipulation, while my people are finally understanding the value of redundancy and physical backup systems." Speaking of backup systems, Banks grinned, "Wait until you see what we've done with the new helmet designs. Turns out crystal form light processing is perfect for heads-up displays." Max burst into the office, all three of his eyes bright with excitement. "Director Rex, the latest test results are in. The new hybrid armor outperforms pure energy shields by 300% and traditional physical armor by 250%. "And the power consumption?" Rex asked, already knowing the answer. "Reduced by 60%. The crystal form components actually help recycle energy from impacts." Banks stood up, walking to the window to watch another test round begin. "You know what the funny thing is? Both our species thought we had reached the peak of armor design. Turns out we were both right and both wrong." "Indeed," Rex agreed, joining him at the window. "The true peak wasn't in either of our approaches. It was in learning to combine them. Though I still think the rocket launcher idea needs more work." "I heard that," Max called from the corridor, causing another round of laughter. As Rex watched the continued tests, he finally understood the deeper truth. Sometimes the most logical solution was to embrace a little illogic. After all, if humanity had stuck to pure logic in their armor design, the galaxy would be a much less protected place. "So," Banks asked with a grin, ready to see the new tank designs. Max may have gotten his way about the rocket launchers this time. Rex's crystal form flickered with both amusement and concern. The integration of human and crystal form technology was proceeding perfectly, perhaps a little too perfectly, given Max's enthusiasm. But that, he supposed, was exactly what made it work so well.